the first couple times they did it, it felt really cool because one, it was the first time, but also it was like
Right.
I've heard of all these names before, but I've never seen them in action. I don't subscribe, like I don't have a subscription to NGPW World, like,
Right.
uh, but I've heard of Okada and I've heard of Jay White. He was in New Japan at the time, and like
Hmm.
all these names, and I was like, oh my god, they're here, and I can see like what they're all about, and it's hype.
Right.
And now it's gotten to the point where all those dudes have made their rounds through AEW to the point where it's not even like a special occasion anymore. It's like every once a month, we get like a New Japan guy coming through. And now we're at the point where this Forbidden Door feels like more of a crossover with CMLL. I've heard of some names over there, but we're at the point where you've almost kind of, to a degree, unless you're like a super hardcore wrestling fan and you watch everything internationally,
Hmm.
we've already done the run through of all the names that you know.
Right.
And now
Right.
it's like, I didn't know who Hechicero was. I don't know who Stephanie Vakor is.
Mm-mm.
I know of like Shingo Takagi and
Yeah.
Naito,
Right.
but they've already been through AEW
Yeah.
once before. I'm trying to think of other names, but this one it's just like, now it no longer feels special. They're regulars
Yeah.
in
Right.
AEW, and then the new ones that they are bringing in, I've never heard of before, and they're
Hmm.
banking on the audience that has heard of them before, which I don't know what portion of AEW's audience is like this hyper specific, like people that watch wrestling all around the world. I don't know what percentage that is, but I know I'm not in that percentage,
Yeah.
and because of that, I like don't really care about what's going on. These, even like stripping the story away from any of these matches, I don't know who these people are,
Right.
and that is just like, I don't want to say frustrating because it's not necessarily frustrating. It's just like, why should I? How am I
Because you
supposed to get
can.
hyped for this match if I don't know? MJF had his first match back on TV, and then Hechicero pops up on the TV, and he's like, I'm Hechicero. We're gonna have a
Yeah.
match at Forbidden Door, and I'm like, cool. Who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
excited to see MJF wrestle, but like, why should I care about this?
I think that is a big issue. And sorry, Justin.
No,
cut
you're
you
good.
off there,
You're
but
good.
I think it is a big issue for AEW that I think it's good on the one hand if you are, like you said, one of those like just omega wrestling fans who just like watches everything, consumes everything. I think that the product is perfectly made for you, but I think that they sometimes do a lot of assumptions about, like you have to know storylines and feuds from 10 years ago.
AEW again banks on Tony is here for the internet audience,
Yeah.
Right.
and that's totally okay.
Hmm.
That's totally fine, but you're gonna hurt your product a little bit because it's like, you know, you can feed us as much information. Wrestling is all about repetition. That's
Yeah.
how we get things drilled through our head, is like, if you don't know somebody, you're going to know who they are in maybe 2 weeks of seeing them because they're
Hmm.
just going to tell you everything you need to know about them on commentary. But this is different because they're almost, for the most part, assuming what's like, who this is and what's going on and why this is important, which
Yeah.
isn't always the case. I'm going to watch Forbidden Door.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, I'm sure it'll be a good show. I'm sure there'll be, like every AEW show, there'll be some twists and turns and
Right.
announcements or pops or whatever. And also, to speak quickly about the MJF Daniel Garcia thing, because I was in the other room for this, it was cool. It was a cool moment because they're both from New York, and
Hmm.
their hometown crowds. Not to diss Garcia, but like, MJF can do a bigger match,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not diminishing Daniel Garcia because he's honestly one of my favorite wrestlers there.
Hmm.
He's just a lot lower on the card and needs to keep working his way up. If
Yep.
anything, you gotta, put Daniel Garcia in a bigger match than MJF, or not bigger, but like something more on his level. Like, they both just need different opponents, and I feel like this isn't. I don't think we're gonna get that match at all, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's not what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, this card, I have the card pulled up as well.
By looking at this real quick, I will say the one big positive from what I have seen in AEW for me is what Tony Storm has been doing.
Yeah.
I think that character is super inventive, super interesting. Reminds me a
Yeah.
lot of just old school cool gimmicks that were just different. I really like her song. I think it's really good. If I had to pinpoint one thing, I would say, and they found a way to make Luther useful too, which is
I
nice.
know.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
even Justin was like,
Yeah.
"Who's the Butler guy, Luther?" And I was like,
Yeah.
he's been here since the beginning. They don't really know what to do with him."
Yeah, the wacky
Oh my
bullshit.
God.
Yeah.
I do wanna talk about that a little bit because on Dynamite this week, we had a really good bit with Mariah May where this whole thing is like, she's torn between Tony and Mina Shirakawa. She doesn't know who to support, who to back, and
Who to kiss.
because who to kiss. She's friends with both of them and all this stuff. So she comes out with Tony Storm, does her entrance, they hug, they kiss, and Tony walks to the ring. Then she runs back through the tunnel. And then she comes out with Mina Shirakawa, and Justin Roberts announces again with Mariah May. And but he like questioned it. He's like, with Mariah May? And
That's great.
so she does her dance with her, and then the whole match was Tony being fucking like jealous. She's jealous the whole time. And she's like, tag me. And then she tags Mina, and she's like, and I don't know if you'd noticed this, Galir, but it was in black and white when it was focusing on Tony. And then Mariah tagged Mina, and then it cut to color again.
Oh wait, no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so she tagged Mina right in front of her. Tony made a pissed off face, and then it went back to color, and she's like,
that's great.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great stuff, really creative stuff. And then at the end of this, the seam finally broke here, and Mina goes to hit Tony with the champagne bottle, but Tony dodges and she hits Mariah May, and Tony's like, you son of a bitch. And she's like, no one hits my girl, and all this stuff. And they get into a scuffle. Security comes out and all that.
You think they're gonna like make up, and they have they do a little toast, they do a little dance. Tony's got some dance moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Mina Shirakawa had to fucking ruin it.
Yeah. It was a tragedy, a whole tragedy. So yeah, I'm really excited for that match. I think that match is gonna It's gonna be really good. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens with Mariah May during all of this. Who she finally decides to side with in the end there. And then the other match that is gonna be good but had a questionable build so far is Will Ospreay and Swerve. I don't think we really had a solidified build until last week.
I was gonna, and like this week too was actually like, I really like. I didn't think the Gates of Agony would be able to have a good tag match in the nicest way possible. They've just not done it for me ever.
Yeah.
Who are they? Where do are they Ring of Honor?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they were originally the team that Prince Nana was the manager for.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. And so, yeah, this match was great. There was a lot of like, it's your typical like two opponents before a pay-per-view team up to watch them like either coexist or fall apart.
Yeah, and it's exactly what we said last time. Like,
yep. And they did it was really good because there were like moments where one of them would go for a move and almost hit the other, and they'd be like, whoa, what the hell are you doing, man? But then there was one point where Swerve goes for a boot while I think Toa Leona had Will Ospreay like held back, and he literally goes for a boot to Will Ospreay's in front of him. So like if Will Ospreay didn't move out of the way, he would have. They were like, did he fully plan on kicking Will Ospreay?
Yeah.
Right.
So there was like some really interesting story points in this match, which I really liked. And then, they get the victory. Obviously, the match ends, and they're standing side by side or face to face, and Will Ospreay does the thing he did a couple weeks ago, where he kind of like sneaks the title into his grasp, and then Swerve just fucking knocks him down to his knees and does the house call kick to his face. It was
that kick was fucking
it's one of my favorite moves.
Yeah.
Wait, so just to quickly clarify again, so I'm not super filled in on this shit, is So Will is currently the international champion, but he's trying to become double champ.
And that's one of the problems.
Okay.
That is just
for the world title, and
Yeah.
the I think it wouldn't be as much of a problem if he held the championship for longer, but he just won it a month ago.
Right.
So that's what has us all like, why does this match need to happen now? I think if anything, and I've been seeing this opinion a lot too on the internet, but like have that match at Wembley and have Will Ospreay win the world title in Wembley.
Yeah.
If anything, because let Swerve have his time right now. Let him figure out his shit and make it a good title run. Because it's, this is kind of giving it a little bit more merit. But I hate to say that Will Ospreay is helping, this title run feel a little bit more special. But at the same time, Will Ospreay is very clearly like the guy right now in AEW. Yeah. I wouldn't even say like even MJF being back hasn't really done it for me a whole lot yet. Yeah. Sadly,
I agree,
because we were really excited for him to come back. Will Ospreay feels like the guy, and
his entrance feels so big.
Yeah,
like as soon as his music hits, you have and he jumps out.
People pop more for Ospreay than they do for Swerve.
Yeah,
right now.
100%.
That's kind of like, unfortunately, that's kind of an issue. Like, because you want that reaction for your world champ, and like him winning the title was really good, but then the way they booked him, the few weeks after that, like, was just garbage, for lack of a better word. Like,
right.
Whereas like Will Ospreay is just getting this insane like treatment and respect from the fans, and you would think he's the world champion right now.
Yeah.
But and then you also run into the problem. Sorry, you run into the problem too, where he has a championship already, but does that necessarily feel as important as him? Or do people kind of recognize that he could be in a more important position? Yeah. And it just sucks because I still stand by this, but they should have pulled the trigger on Swerve earlier when he had that triple threat match with Samoa Joe and Adam Page.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
I agree.
I think. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I was just gonna quickly say I think that Will Ospreay, like you said, is obviously like super over, super cool, super good. I think that the issue becomes for these pay-per-views when you have them kind of, I guess not as infrequently as they used to, kind of when I first started watching it back in 2018 or whatever, but every pay-per-view match has to be a quote-unquote dream match. And I think that because of that, you end up being like, we have to, on this thing where we want to sell as many buys as possible, we want to, put the asses in the seats, all that type of thing. I think you end up being like, well, we have to have Will Ospreay challenge Swerve because that match on paper should bang. And like, I mean, like all these sorts of things, even if from a booking perspective, it makes no sense because he just won another title. It's like, you kind of want the biggest star on the show who gets the most pops, most regularly, most fan interest, because Will Ospreay's been like a gigantic star, even before he was in AEW. I think that it becomes a problem on this show. It would probably have been a better idea. Again, I can't say I know too much about the specific scenario surrounding AEW, but put Ospreay down the card defending the international title.
Yeah.
Have him rack up a couple defenses of that title. Have Swerve go against, I don't know, I get MJF. Like, I don't know. Have him against somebody who's big, who's popping. I don't know.
Or like even a New Japan guy. Like the last few years they did MJF versus Tanahashi. Before that, it was like I think it might have been. I don't even remember who was in the first one. But the allure of it, right, is that it's AEW versus New Japan, essentially. That was the idea of the first one. Yeah. So like do that again. It was Jon Moxley versus Tanahashi.
Right.
Tanahashi main evented both.
That's awesome.
The thing with this card is like on paper, it's good. It's a good card. And I think a year, 2 years from now, we'll look back at the card and be like, okay, those were good matches. Like, they were solid. But the problem is the build around it right now. And it's just, the build is so messy for all of these matches, with the exception being, like, Tony Storm. Like her build is like a cohesive story.
I will say I got a little worried with the Toni Storm thing because like their whole, last 3 weeks of matches involving, her, Mariah May, Mina, and then the Outcasts.
Yeah.
Saraya and Harley Cameron, Anna Jay. It feels very reminiscent of a couple years ago where every week you would see the same 4 or 5 female wrestlers. Hikaru Shida, Britt Baker, Toni Storm was in that mess, Jamie Hayter, and then like
Ruby Soho.
And then it was maybe like one more, and they would all be involved in the same either one-on-one, fatal 4-way, tag team match, and it would just be the same lineup. I'm worrying that this is gonna happen. I still am stoked, and the match that she's gonna have with Mina is gonna be really good. But like this week when they were doing that 6-woman tag, I was like, this feels. This is a little familiar to me, you know. I will say, the ladder match is gonna be really good.
I see Jack Perry winning. I think it's gonna lead up to all the shit with the Elite and him having the TNT title. Like you said, I think it would have been really funny, honestly, if they went through with just handing him the TNT title.
Just give him the belt.
Yeah.
We're the EVPs. We can do this.
Yeah. Like. I thought that was a really good bit, but I mean, the ladder match is going to be good. It's going to be solid, but Jack Perry's going to win. Like
also, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy looks like it's going to be a pretty solid match.
Good,
his match with Kyle O'Reilly this week was really fucking good. Really, it was pretty quick, but like they, 2 technical wrestlers. We saw when he had that match with Danielson in October, like. That was a really good match. I am a Zack Sabre Jr. fan. I'm an Orange Cassidy fan too. So like
they're both
2 very, very differing styles. I had some interest in the the learning tree match.
Boy.
Well, because on Dynamite he was like, we're gonna have a 6-man tag at Forbidden Door, and this is our partner. And we're going to show the footage of the partner, and we haven't seen this footage before. And it was Minoru Suzuki.
Yeah.
And I predicted it, too. I was like, I bet she's going to be Minoru Suzuki because he always shows up for Forbidden Door. And then the video is just Minoru Suzuki being like, hey, Chris Jericho, I'm actually not going to be teaming up with you at Forbidden Door. I want to face you for the FTW Championship. And so I thought that was the match for Forbidden Door, but it's not. It's the learning tree with Jeff Cobb versus Hook, Joe, and Shibata. So I was confused because I thought this was going to be for that pay-per-view. I thought that was kind of the whole point because, he's a New Japan guy.
Is
Suzuki.
It not?
It's not. It's a 3-on-3 tag team match, and Suzuki's not even a part of it.
Unless they just changed it. Like, that was supposed to be the placeholder, and then this time he was like, hey, I'm going to face you. Or they have 2 matches.
I don't know. Maybe we'll get answers on Rampage, but I'm probably not going to watch Rampage.
Yeah. Rampage exists.
It's a show. That's
for sure. It's the same, like 200,000 people watch it every week, and they're happy.
But anyways, you were going to say something, Joe?
I was just going to say, I think that the last, if you want to circle this back around to kind of impact and things like that, the last big impact that I felt from a New Japan guy coming, not counting Okada signing and all that sort of thing, was like Suzuki when he showed up after Moxley had like that brutal match, and then Moxley looked terrified. He was like, what the fuck? Why are you here?
You know why? Because it was the first time it happened, and now it's like, I think they even bring him in more frequently than they should now, and it's not even that frequent. You know what I mean? Like he probably comes every like 3 or 4 months for a match, but even that, like, you don't need to have him come in that frequent. I love Suzuki too. His match with Samoa Joe was fucking insane.
Really
when that was booked and people were going insane, like, bring me back the era of Tony Khan Cokehead where he just would like book matches that like felt insane, like and they were dream matches too in their own way, but like, I don't know. I think it's gotten to the point where we're like, oh yeah, like we've seen this movie before, kind of. Even if it's with 2 people we've never seen wrestle, like it just doesn't feel special at that point because it's like, Are we focusing on dream matches now, or are we focusing on stories? Can we do both? Can we make a good balance? Like, can find that balance? I don't know.